Welcome to Pixel Therapy, the video game podcast where we look at the games we play through the lens of the player, where what you play is just as important as how you play it, and where emotional intelligence is a critical stat. I'm your co-host Jamie, pronouns she, they,
And I'm your co-host Spencer, pronouns they, them.
and this is Pixel Therapy. Welcome.
Hi.
It's been a while. It's been an extra week or two, I think, than we
Sorry,
usually
been a
go.
minute and a half instead of just a minute.
Yeah, we went like a week early and then a week late. And yeah, anyway, but we're back.
We're
Hello.
riding the ship.
Riding the ship, trying to get back on track here. Let's start as we always do with our Patreon shoutouts. This is our special thank you to everyone who's subscribed at our Patreon name in the credits tier. So that's a very big thank you to Lindsay, Pimpatai, CD Mess, Ava, Alexis, and Thomas. Thank you all so much for your continued
Love
support
ya.
of the show, even when we're late and quiet for long periods of time. And
You
we're
guys get it.
always, yeah, we appreciate you. We're always keep trying to get back to this. This is what we want to be doing with our lives, but
Mhm.
goddamn pesky things like jobs and partners and other things get in the
Why
way.
our jobs?
Why our jobs? I know, like if we didn't have to have jobs, we could just do this all the time.
We'd
Think
be,
about it.
vibing, making art,
Yeah.
talking in the salon of ideas.
Exactly. Exactly. Remember, folks, if you want to get your name in the credits, you can hop on over to patreon.com/pixeltherapypod, where you can subscribe for free to stay up to date on all things pixel therapy. Or for as little as $2 a month, you can get access to our Patreon exclusive monthly bonus episodes. For the month of March, our bonus episode was a review of Keep Driving, which is a super fun little indie game where you're driving your car across the state to go
Mhm.
to a concert and hijinks ensue. Really cool game. The further I get away from that, the more I'm just like, "Damn, that was a really good little
Yeah,
game."
same. And when I look back in the rear mirror, I'm like,
Look back in
keep
the rear.
driving as it disappears behind me in the
Yeah,
horizon. So good. The
yeah.
soundtrack slaps.
Oh, man, yeah, I've been jamming to that. It's the whole soundtrack's on Spotify, so if you did check the game out or even if you didn't, go check out that Keep
Just
Driving soundtrack on Spotify. It's some great tunes to
mhm.
drive around to. Good stuff. If you're looking for other ways to support the show, please consider rating and reviewing us on Apple Podcasts. And you can also check out and subscribe to the Pixel Therapy Pod YouTube channel, where we're streaming this live right now.
Wow.
And where I promise we will one day again stream games. It's
Yeah.
gonna happen.
Yeah.
It's gonna happen. If I'm looking into the future, I can say that we will do it someday.
Whoa.
As soon as
They're a
Spencer
psychic.
has to stop traveling for work, we'll do it
Yeah.
again.
Uh,
um,
huh.
so be sure to head over to youtube.com/@pixeltherapypod and click that bell icon to get notifications whenever we go live there slash here. And of course, after all that, know that no matter how you choose to engage with us, we appreciate you being here all the same.
Mhm.
All right. It's time to get cozy. It's time to pull up an armchair. Feel free to lie down on the couch and let's talk about our feelings. Spencer, how are you today?
Yes. Well, I'm pretty good because I've seen you in person, the last, 2 weekends, and I'm gonna see you again tomorrow, so
Yeah.
that's pretty exciting.
Yeah. It
I was
is.
wondering, if you could tell our listeners about so Jamie's been watching, Steven Universe, a
I
great little
have.
show.
A great little show recommended by my bestest friend, Spencer.
Aw. And, it's been a great opportunity for me to kinda watch it again after a good, I don't know, 5 to 7 years.
Mhm,
But, Jamie, seeing as you completed the original series and watched
mhm,
the movie, and you're now
mhm,
halfway through Steven Universe Future, which is like
mhm,
the epilogue,
mhm.
I was wondering if you could give us a little review of what you think of the show.
Really put me on the spot here. Spencer, knowing I'm someone who likes to prepare immensely, has thrown me this question to just
The hot
casually give my
seat.
review of Steven Universe. No, I really like Steven Universe. If folks have not heard of it before, it's an animated series that originally aired on Cartoon Network. I don't know, when did it run?
Uh,
Do you remember?
2013?
Okay, so it's like 10-ish years old. Yeah, 2013 was when it started. Had 5 seasons,
Nailed
followed
it.
by a movie, followed by a, like, epilogue season called Steven Universe Future. Um, The first season is, like, actually 2 seasons smushed together, so that's, like, 50 episodes long, but the
Mm,
other seasons are, like, 20-ish. And they're all it's, Cartoon Network, so it's, like, 10 to 15-minute episodes, so they're really easily watchable, easily can easily squeeze into any
mm,
spare moment you have of the day. You can just watch a quick
yeah.
Steven Universe episode.
Or it'll be
Um
like 3 a.m. and you're at your friend's house and you have to get up at 8 a.m. the next morning, and it's like, "Just one more.
Yeah,
They're
just
only
one more.
12 minutes long."
Exactly, exactly. But the show follows, this young boy named Steven, who's, like, I think 13 years old when the show begins, and he is half human, half gem. The gems are this alien society that they're kinda like the Roman Empire, like, they've
Mm,
expanded and conquered different planets, and Steven's mom was a gem. All the gems are named after their gem, so his mom
mm,
was
mhm,
Rose Quartz. His mom, gave up her own life basically to be able to have him, so he inherited her gem. And so he's being raised by 3 close allies of his mom, the gem garnet, the gem pearl, and the gem amethyst. And, yeah, the gems are like super powered beings, and with the gems, they call themselves the crystal gems. He's helping them, the show starts, they keep going on these missions around the planet Earth to, find and corral, corrupt gems that are living on the planet in the form of kind of dangerous monsters, and so they fight the corrupted gem. They, cause it to, like, poof or whatever, I think they call it, which basically, if the
mhm,
gem takes enough damage to its physical form, the physical form will disappear, and it'll, like, retreat back into just the gem part of it, and then they can, like, secure that gem and prevent it from reforming its physical form and not harming anyone again. So, that's kinda where the show starts. Um, and, like, the first season is very kids cartoon
right? Lulls you
style.
into a sense of
Yeah.
security.
Yeah, like, each episode there's not really a story that's carrying through episode to episode. There's a lot of goofy stuff. We're following kind of Steven and his hijinks. He hasn't really, like, figured out what his gem powers are or what his role on the team of the Crystal Gems is, and so it's kind of like him living his sort of unstructured life in the town of Beach City. He's not, like, enrolled in school. His dad,
Mm-mm.
like, lives out of a van and runs a car wash and, like, used to be a rock star, so it's like he's got this, like, what I think most kids would be like, "Oh my god, I wanna live just like Steven."
Yeah,
He just
dream
runs
life.
around and gets a donut at the donut shop every day and has his run of the city and goes to the arcade and then gets to, like, hang out with people with superpowers. This
With his
seems
3
like
moms.
this 3 moms, yeah. But as the show progresses, things start to get more and more serious. Steven develops powers. He's able to go on the quest with the gems. The stories start to continue episode to episode. And, yeah, I think it handles it's a show that's ultimately about growing up, um,
Mhm,
uh, childhood trauma and processing that. Um,
mhm,
and there's a lot of queer themes in the show. The gems are all women, um, who I don't know, there's, like, a huge breadth of, like, the way the different gems express like,
mhm,
gender identity, basically, even the show
mhm,
doesn't talk about that explicitly. There's also this, concept that's introduced partway through the first season called fusion, which is where 2 gems can fuse together to make a larger and, like, separate gem entity that is both of them combined, but also has its own a fusion has, like, their own personality traits and their own name. And it becomes kind of a metaphor for intimacy, and the show just, like, continually as it goes on, like, continually impresses with the depth of the themes and the emotions that it draws out.
yeah,
Steven's, like, a really well-written character, perhaps not 100% believable as, like, a young
mhm,
kid, but, like, he just reads as a kid who has been, like, treated as an adult from a very young age, and
mm,
so has learned to even though he's got, like, childlike tendencies and childlike naivete,
mm,
um, and a sense of, like, fun and whimsy that adults often lack. He still often is put in, like, very serious situations. He kind of becomes the moral center and the, like, beating
Mhm.
heart of the gems, like, they look to him for hope and for, like, moral guidance. And I don't know, it's really interesting because he's treated like a complete person, but the show still tries to walk this line of, like, sometimes the gems are like, "No, you're a kid, Steven, and we need to make this decision for you." Like, the gems or his dad'll make decisions like that, and yet he's still treated like an autonomous and intelligent person who has a role to play despite being a child, and so I think the show does some interesting stuff there about I don't know, I think especially in the United States culture, we tend to view children as not being complete people or, like, we don't wanna see
Yeah,
children as complete people, we don't wanna give them autonomy.
yeah.
And I don't know, that it's just something that I thought about a lot while watching the show, the way the different gems and Steven's dad relate to him and talk to him and try to straddle that line of both treating him like a complete person while also protecting him from things that he shouldn't be exposed to at his age is really
Mhm.
interesting, and they fuck it up sometimes, and I think it's really cool that the show decided to do this epilogue, like Spencer said, I'm watching the epilogue now, Steven Universe Future, and it ages Steven up a few years and is all about, like, him reconciling his PTSD and, like, what he went through, in the main series when he was, like, 13, 14 years old and how that's affecting him now that he's 16, 17. Um, so yeah, it's just a really emotionally mature show that also has, like, fun, silly fight scenes, and then it'll, like, drop in an episode that's just about, like, Steven getting his favorite ice cream. Like, it
Yeah. Yeah.
it can be really funny, and then an episode later, you're sobbing.
Sobbing.
So I really, really enjoyed it. It was something that was on my list for a long time, but then Spencer was like, "Hey, I think you really like this, and I think you should watch it," and they kept badgering me about it, and I was like, "Okay, okay, I'm gonna watch it." And, I will say the first half of the first season, while I enjoyed it, when it was being more childlike, was a little bit
Mhm.
harder to get through, but once I got about, I don't know, 15, 20 episodes in and the story started carrying through episode to episode, it pretty much had me, and I haven't been able to stop since. Blew through all those episodes in just a few
Hell
weeks.
yeah.
It's been really good. So, highly recommend. Really, really good
Mhm.
show. Really, really
Yeah.
like it. What do you
Yeah,
think
like
of it? You watched it when you were, like, younger. Did you watch it when it was actually on TV, or was it a bit
Yes.
after?
Yeah, I was watching it when it was on TV, so I was still, like, what was 2013? I was, uh, I guess 18. Oh my god, what? Yeah, 19, 18, 19. So,
Yeah.
I was a little bit older than the target audience,
Mhm.
but it's still, especially as it picked up in later seasons, a lot of the themes resonated with me because as a younger person for whom the audience was targeting, like, I had never seen any kind of queer or even metaphorically queer represent well, there's some explicitly queer representation in that show
Yeah.
too, which was groundbreaking at the time,
Yeah.
but I had never known that a quote unquote kids cartoon could have these explorations of gender and sexuality and really complex relationship dynamics and even things hinting at, different family structures or relationship styles like polyamory or
Mhm.
not having traditional nuclear family structure,
Mhm.
um, or, having people you love who don't always act in a way that is loving, and working through that. Um, just so many things that I think absolutely influenced my own, emerging understanding of myself and how I wanted to relate to other people. So, like, I absolutely count it as one of my formative,
Yeah.
media
Yeah.
sources. I've always loved the culture of the gems and how it contrasts with humanity, like, 'cause literally as gemstones, this alien race is defined by its rigidity and order and structure and assigned roles, and having these characters, break through that with things like fusion, like, one of the th like this idea that 2 different gems fusing is seen as this, like, absolutely scandalous,
Mhm.
like, almost
Yeah.
disgusting,
Yeah.
act in the eyes of gem society, but then having those fusions become, totally new identities or expressions, and they're absolutely, like, beautiful and strong, and, there's a lot of parallels that you can draw to aspects of the queer and trans experience,
Mhm.
and I just found the world building to be totally fascinating, in the show, and a common refrain, and especially in the later seasons, was like, "Oh my god, I can't believe this is a kid's show." Like, it's really
Yeah. Yeah.
like, in the same way that the show allows Steven to be a full person and for the adults around him to model respecting his autonomy and opinion and thoughts and emotions, I think it also extends that respect to the viewer, who are also kids who are being shown that, like, they deserve to be seen
Mhm.
fully and understood, and demonstrating ways to communicate and ways to manage emotions and process feelings, like, it's a miracle that that it was on for as long as it was,
Yeah, I that's yeah, that's so true. It's like in this day and age where we have gotten this many seasons too of something like this funded, I just feel like
right.
in the streaming model, places wanna, like, spin up a show for 1 season and then
Mhm,
cancel it right away if it doesn't immediately get the viewers, and I'm just thinking, like, yeah, the show probably built its audience steadily over time as people realized what it was doing. Had it not had the opportunity to slowly grow into the story that it told,
yeah,
yeah, I don't know, man. It's a special fucking show, though. I definitely think people should check it out, and, uh yeah. Yeah, I think it's just it's representation of relationships and intimacy and the varied ways that that can present itself. Like, the show has says so much about intimacy and relationships with having almost no explicit romance in it at all.
yeah, yeah,
And yet, the heart of so much of the show is, like, how different characters relate to each other and form relationships. Um
mhm,
some of them being I like, certainly being interpretable as romantic, even if they're not
mhm,
explicitly romantic is yeah, it's super interesting.
yeah. Last question, who's your favorite character?
Oh god, I don't think I could if I have to pick, it's probably Garnet, but, like,
Yeah, good
man,
good answer.
they're all pretty fucking good. They're
Yeah,
all pretty fucking good. I find, Garnet and Steven's relationship in particular to be one of the shining points of the show. She's, like, a very calm, stable person who
mhm,
she has future vision, so she can kind of, like, see slightly into the future. Um, and she's the leader of the Crystal Gems from the beginning of the show, and she's just really put together, has her shit together, like, just really on top of it,
yeah,
sensible, smart,
mm,
um, but also, like, my first read on her was that she was kind of, like, emotionally distant,
mm,
because she just talks in a little bit of a monotone, and can be really plain in the way that she speaks, and, like, brief, like, really blunt. Um, but then as the show goes on, you start to realize that it's not that she's, like, cut off from her emotions, she's just so sure in herself
yeah,
that she speaks very directly. But the relationship that her and Steven have is, like, one of the most beautiful things in the fucking show. She's just so attentive to him, and also, like, even though she can literally see the future, learns so much from Steven and is also the gem who is consistently like, Amethyst really feels more like a sibling relationship that Steven
mm,
has with her, like, she likes to play and be crazy and, like, go out and be, like, be chaotic and do wild
mhm,
stuff. Pearl is the, like, very, like, almost like helicopter mom kind of
mhm,
parent. Pearl knows best. Pearl has everything in, like, this organized, rigid schedule. But Garnet is the parent who, like, sometimes she sees what's best for Steven, but she also, like, really listens to him and respects his opinion on things. And there's so many times that she learns stuff from him and him from her, and they just have such a beautiful relationship. Every time they sit down and have a heart to heart conversation, it's just like tears welling up in my
yeah.
eyes.
Yeah.
And there's other reasons that I think she's just an awesome fucking character that I won't spoil on the podcast,
Mhm.
but
Mhm.
wink, wink, I know you know.
Yeah. If you know, you know.
Yeah. Well, who's your favorite character?
Yeah, no, Garnet. It's gotta be
Yeah,
Garnet. I
it's
mean,
yeah.
and
She's
Estelle
great.
freaks it on the voice
Oh, yeah,
acting and
Estelle being the voice
singing.
actor for Garnet is fantastic. Oh, yeah, we didn't even touch on the fact that the show is basically a musical, which wouldn't usually be my vibe, but I'm
Yeah.
far more tolerant of musicals in cartoon form than not, and the music on the show is actually it's really good.
It's one of the few non-annoying musicals.
Yeah,
So
yeah, yep. It doesn't feel super weird when people burst into song. And it
yeah.
also, like, the show tends to use music, uh like, it feels less like the way a musical uses music, like, characters are not constantly just, like, singing their emotions, though they
Mhm.
sometimes
Mhm.
do. It's more like there'll be a music video within an episode, but the song is more it feels more like a popular song, and then at other
Mm.
times, they'll do an episode that does feel very much like a musical episode.
Mm.
I would say that was one of the things with the film, Steven Universe the movie that hasn't been my favorite thing out of everything. I didn't hate it, but I thought it was just kind of okay.
Yeah.
But the Steven Universe the movie is very much a musical. It feels like a musical in the way that
Mm.
it's structured and the way they keep coming back to songs. So, I don't know. It's a good show. People should go watch it.
Yeah. If you have 12 minutes,
If
check
you
it
have
out.
12 minutes, check it out. Who doesn't have 12 minutes? Come on. All right, we should probably talk about video games. That's probably what people are here to hear us talk about. And we played a really fun game, a really sweet
Mhm.
game today, or for today, I should say. We didn't
We
play it
played it all
today.
today.
Played it all today, whole thing
We've
today.
been awake for the past 24 hours.
It took you 24 hours to play this game?
Bro, we'll get to that. I'm like 22 hours in and I still am not done.
Oh, okay. Wow. All
So
right.
I'll explain myself
Yeah,
shortly.
okay. I can't wait to hear this. Hopefully it's because you're enjoying it so much. All right. Anyway, we're gonna get into it. Today we are talking about the game Wanderstop. Wanderstop is the first game from indie developer Ivy Road, which was a studio co-founded by the creator of Stanley Parable, Davey Redden, as well as folks who worked on Gone Home and Minecraft. The game is published by Annapurna Interactive, and it came out on March 11th of this year. It's got an 84 on OpenCritic and a very positive review status on Steam. In Wanderstop, players inhabit the character of Alta, who is a young fighter who finds herself stuck at a tea shop in the center of a magical forest. After some prodding from the tea shop's affable owner, Boro, Alta decides to work at the tea shop until she is able to return to fighting. And as Alta, players will grow fruit, rake leaves, brew tea, and decorate the shop, all while serving the various customers who wander in out of the forest. And the game uses the trappings of the cozy game genre to tell a story. It says in the description is about quote change and tea.
Mm. Mhm.
So yeah, let's turn it over to you here, Spencer. I want to understand why have you been playing this game for 22 hours? What are you
I
playing it on, and what's your high level take on all of those hours you've played?
Why isn't everyone else playing it for 22 hours?
Maybe
Yeah, I
people
looked
are. I don't know. I only played it for about 12, but I'm
yeah, Jamie
interested.
was like, "Oh, it's like 8 to 10 hours." I look up how long to beat. Oh, like 8 to 12 hours.
Sure,
Yeah,
yeah.
I'm like 22 hours in. I think okay, this is a game. Sorry, I'm playing it on the Steam
This is
Deck
a
with my
game.
best friend. This
This
is
is
a
a
game.
Spencer says, "This is a game." Quote,
End of show.
"Put it on the
Um,
box."
put it on the box. Um, I just okay, it's my high level take, love it. I realize I love games that have a vague sense of foreboding, undercutting
Uh-huh.
everything that
Mhm.
slowly builds
Yeah.
until you
You just want
realize
games to, mirror real life.
yeah. I also just love psychological tension. Like,
Yeah.
I love a game that starts out as something and then becomes something else, and you're like, "Ooh, what's going on here?" Like, I'm freaked
Mhm.
out, but I'm, like, so intrigued.
Mhm.
So I love that about it because that's just cutting through absolutely everything. I think, like, this is a game that's very much about, um, I think, uh, I guess at a very high level, mental health and sort of the ways in which we avoid pain in pursuit of distraction
Mhm.
until we realize that we can no longer outrun pain and the only option left is to face it.
Mm.
But the lies we tell ourselves, the ways we distract or try to cover up or push things away until they can't be ignored anymore.
Yeah.
Another thing is that I think I relate to the character of Alta because she's like a very anxious person who
Mhm.
believes that there must be a solution to every problem and there
Mhm.
must be a set of steps that when you do, you get the reward. And that's how life works. And everything has
Mhm.
order and structure. You just have to figure out the right formula. This is all a very roundabout way of saying that I have been spending hours. Okay, you have this tool, they're clippers throughout the world of Wanderstop, these thorny weeds grow.
Oh
They
boy.
do not stop growing.
No, they
These
don't.
huge, these like suddenly you'll turn a corner and you'll have,
There
at
has to be a
least for
huge
me,
patch. Yeah.
like it will
Mhm.
trigger like when you'll turn a corner and you'll see this huge patch of weeds because it's like if there's a weed present every couple seconds, a new one will grow and
Mhm.
they'll keep
Mhm.
growing and expanding until you cut down all of
Mhm.
them. And if I turn a corner and see a patch of weeds, it's like, I don't know if people watch Severance, but it's like this moment where you look at the computer and you click on certain data and it triggers a fear response in the person.
Oh boy.
Like, literally, my stomach would drop and I would get like the hair would stand up on my neck and I would be possessed and I would have to cut down all like 100 weeds.
Wow.
A funny mechanic is that if you you press the A bu on the deck, it's the A button. You press the A button and Alta will snip, 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 A. If you
Mhm.
hold down the A button, she'll go snip,
She goes Super
snip,
Saiyan.
snip, 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 and suddenly she's like going crazy with the clippers. So I've spent probably hours on this Sisyphean task
Yeah, no, it
of
really is Sisyphean.
mowing down all of these
Oh
weeds,
boy.
knowing in the back of my mind that more are
They're
gonna
gonna
grow.
come
There
back.
is no end. I will not win the weed cutting
Yeah, I mean, have
game.
you found the ones that you can't even cut? They're
Yes,
just
those
they're
drive
just
me
there to spawn more
crazy.
weeds.
Oh my god.
Yeah.
So, like Jamie mentioned, you can cut weeds, you can sweep up little piles of leaves, you can, repot plants that you see and you can put them around. I've spent so much time doing all of those things, and I think I've reckoned with myself like, "Girl, you're crazy," because you know that this isn't something you do and then you'll be done, and then the game is like, "Good job, Spencer, you did it." It will just keep coming up, and I literally can't stop myself from, like, anxiety cleaning
Oh my
the
gosh.
game.
So this game is really putting you through it.
It's really hitting. I'm like,
Yeah.
it's trying to teach me a lesson. I'm resistant to it still.
Yeah.
I think, I finally looked it up because I was like, "Damn, this game keeps going. Shit." I looked it up. It's like there's, like, 2 more characters I have to meet,
Okay.
2 more customers I have to meet.
Okay.
So I'm in, like, chapter 4.5 out of 5 chapters,
Okay.
so
Okay.
I'm getting there. I
Mhm.
kinda don't want it to end, though, because it's so satisfying to, like, clean.
Well, I think
Anyway.
push towards that final bit because I think that's part of the message of the game.
Mm.
Um, yeah, as you yeah, we don't wanna talk about that probably, but it's part of the message of the game is like, yeah, you
We can talk
could
about the
choose to
message.
stay here,
Mm,
um, for as long as you want.
yeah. So, it's it's good. It's great.
It's good, it's great.
What did you play it on?
It's, actively therapizing you.
Yeah,
Um, I played it on, PS5 where I play most of my games.
good choice.
And I have finished the game. Like I said, I played it about, like, 10 to 12 hours, um, and I really liked it. Although I think for me personally, I don't know, I kinda go back and forth a little bit because on the one hand, like, I really like the narrative of it, and I really like what it's trying to say, and I
Mhm,
understand what it was trying to say, and yet in trying to say some of that, it didn't have the quote unquote "cozy game" elements that resonate the most with me because
mhm,
it was actively, like, um, eschewing some of those elements to carry its themes forward better, and so I think that
mm,
was the right choice, but it also made the game less engaging for me overall, but I think that
mm,
was part of the point. So I guess
mm,
I'm, like, kinda stuck in this place. It's like, I appreciate the game just, like, with my head, but maybe I
yeah,
didn't appreciate it with my heart in the
mm,
same way. Or it just, it didn't do what I usually want out of a cozy game, which is something
mm.
more like a Stardew simulator. It kind
Which
of
is to not be faced with all of your deepest insecurities
right.
and
Right, so like, it's doing it very intentionally, so I
Yeah,
can't actually fault the game for that, but it made, the mechanics of what I was going through, I never found myself getting lost in the same way
mm,
as I would in a cozy game that clicks for me like Stardew. So it's
yeah,
interesting, but I think the game is really good at making you think about what you're doing and thinking about the trappings of what a cozy game is, and, while also telling, a really interesting and I think important story about how we learn to how like the messy process of healing and learning to change. I think it is
mm,
about change and tea. But I wanted to kind of start by maybe talking a little bit about what a cozy game it will not start. We've already started, but I wanted to talk a little bit about what a cozy game is
yeah,
because I think people who listen to our podcast probably know cozy games and probably have played cozy games. I think a good number of the games that we've played for the podcast could probably be labeled cozy games. But I just wanted to share. I thought Sarah Maria Griffin had writing for the Guardian in her review, Wanderstop review, A Wonderful Break from the Pressure to Win, kind of kicked off the review with, I think, a pretty succinct and straightforward explanation, like her description of a
mm,
cozy game. But she says the term cozy game typically inspires one of two responses in those of us who play video games regularly. It will either call you in with the promise of soft, resource management oriented gameplay, whose slower pace offers a gentle escape and a bucolic alternative to gunslinging and high stress adventure, or it will repel you, as admittedly it repels me. She goes on to say, cozy is often a kind of code for twee, low stakes domestic adventures where drama is eschewed in favor of repetitive tasks intended to generate comfort or imitate lightning in a bottle resource management sims such as Stardew Valley or Animal Crossing.
mm,
And so I do think that Wanderstop is pulling from that tradition of cozy game. You have a lot of elements in the game that are, straight out of a Stardew or an
mhm,
Animal Crossing. As I was listening before, all of the weed trimming, the planting of things, the tea brewing process, it's a whole step-by-step process. You have to when you make tea, you have to go out, you have to trim tea leaves off of tea
mhm,
bushes that just grow naturally in the area. Then you have to bring those tea leaves back to a dehydrator and leave them in there for a set amount of time. It's got like a little timer on it that it'll take and it'll make them into tea balls that can be used to make tea. When you make tea, you have to put in one tea ball and then one fruit to give the tea a flavor. So separately, you plant seeds. The seeds come in a variety of different colors, and the patterns that you plant those different colored plants in is what ultimately like turns into a particular type of fruit tree or bush. And then you pick the fruit. You can, as the game goes on, it even introduces the idea of there's these different mushrooms growing around that you can pick.
mhm,
So you can do things like change the color of the fruit or change the size of the plant, or turn the plant into something that produces trinkets, like which are little tchotchkes that you can like
decorative
set or yeah,
objects.
decorative objects that you can set around the shop. Um,
You can make
so
tea with those too.
you can make tea with those. You can put anything you want into the tea brewer. But even the tea brewing process, it's like this huge pot that's built around a tree in the center of the shop. And you have to climb up a ladder and pour the water in and then pump the bellows to light the fire and boil the tea. And then you flip a switch so that the water moves from the boiler into a separate pot. Then you add all of your ingredients, and that has to be done in a specific order. and then you can pour the tea into a cup and serve it. And you do get customers that come into the shop and they will ask for things. There's a cool puzzle element kind of to how most customers
Mhm.
order their drinks. Early on in the game, customers order in a more straightforward way, but as the game goes on, a customer might be like, "Oh, I really want something that makes me think of my childhood."
Mhm.
And you have a book that, Boro gives you early on, like a field guide, and you have
Mhm.
to kind of flip through your field guide. It's got details on all of the plants that you've grown and the different effects of the different fruits, and you have to read through that book and find the fruit that you think is gonna meet the customer's need and then brew a tea with that and try to give it to them, and if you're right, the customer's story will advance and they'll tell you, more about what's going on with them, and if you're wrong, they'll kind of, they'll tell you, "Nah, this didn't do what I wanted it to do, and you have to try again." Um, so the game has like a good loop system built in
Yeah.
there, and then it also has all of like the what I would say is a bit more Animal Crossing in the feature set, which is like the decorative stuff. So
Mhm.
you can use tea to there's these little creatures called puffins, that are like these weird little penguin chicken things.
Yeah.
And you can give them tea and change them colors with it. So you can do that and have your puffins all be different colors. You can find trinkets around the map, or you can, um, create them by turning your plants into trinket plants, and then you can place those. There's tons of bookshelves all around
Mhm.
the coffee shop or the tea shop. I mean, you can place the trinkets all over the place. You have a camera, you can go out and take pictures and then put the pictures in frames along the walls. Um, I I feel like there's more decorative stuff you can I mean, you can change the colors of all your plants. There's pots all over the
Mhm.
place that you can put
Everywhere.
plants in, so you can grow plants, and rather than using them for fruit, you just pot them and bring them in and set them
Mhm.
places or fill them all up.
There's books in the
There's books.
library.
Yeah, you can find packages in the world and mail the packages back to the people who lost them, and then they'll send you trinkets or other books. You can read the books. There's a handful of books that you get in the mail that you can read. So the
You
game
can
has all
throw
of this other
books in the teapot.
you can throw books in the teapot. You can do anything you want. And so the game does have like that slightly more grindish
Mhm.
situation of like, okay, plant the plants, get the fruit, dehydrate the tea, make the tea, give it to the customer. This is like the narrative mechanism of the game, but it also has all of this aesthetic stuff on the side. So it's like it's fully a cozy game, and I think for folks who um, like cozy games, I think most people will enjoy those elements. It was just for me, it didn't quite have the like I wanted to min max it, and you can't.
Yeah.
The game resists being min maxed
Yes. Yes.
completely.
Yes.
Yes.
I kind of at first was really resistant to the idea that I needed to open this field guide and read to like
Mm,
understand what I needed to do because it was like um for whatever reason it was difficult for me to wrap my head around all the combinations of so there's like like every season there's like several seasons in the game. You'll have 3 seeds that you can plant, and it'll be like a red seed, a yellow seed, a blue or a pink seed, a yellow seed, a blue seed,
mhm,
and planting different arrangements and combinations of those seeds will produce new fruits, and
mhm.
I constantly have to, like, open my field guide and be like, "Okay, wait, how do I make this specific fruit again?" Or what's the formation, or the incredibly complicated tea brewing process. I'd have to be like, "Wait, what's the order of the steps again?" And at first it was frustrating, like, I was like, "What? This is so, manual.
Mm,
Why
mhm.
isn't the game doing the work for me?"
Yeah, yeah. Why
And
can't I
over
plant more tea bushes? That was the thing that I initially, like, got frustrated at. I was like,
Yeah.
"Why do I have to go find these tea bushes? Why can't I just plant
Yes,
tea bushes somewhere convenient, and then I can scoop
exactly.
up all the tea leaves really fast?"
Yes,
But that's not the point of
literally.
the game.
Exactly. It's like, over time, I feel like in the same way that when you first start meditating, it can be really uncomfortable
Mm,
and frustrating because we're so constantly overstimulated and barraged with instant gratification style bite-sized content that it's like you literally have to train your brain to quiet down and allow thoughts to come in and go out and not have that constant serotonin drip going.
Mhm.
I think in the same way, at first, I was like, "Ah, fuck this game. I wanna, like, go faster. I don't wanna read."
Mhm.
And over time, as the rituals became more familiar and less overwhelming, I was like, "Oh, okay. Let's go get some tea leaves." And now I've figured out how to use the tea machine, and I allowed myself to get into the almost meditative state of going through this long process, and then my new obsession became so there's this very long, complicated it's like the tea machine looks almost like a water distiller, if you've seen that. It's like this
Mhm.
complicated glass structure with all these loops and twirls, and after all is said and done, you take a mug, you put it under the tea spout, and you pull this rope to get the tea to flow down into the cup.
Mhm.
The proportions are, like, all wrong. It's like a massive tea kettle that looks like it could fit, like, a swimming pool's amount or a hot tub's worth of water, and then
Mhm.
you pull the rope, and then somehow it's like half of that kettle goes into a tiny mug, but
Well, it
you
always
really have to
overflows too. I was like, the animation for the
exactly.
mug filling is that the tea always runs all over the side, and I'm like, "Why are we
Yeah.
wasting so much tea?" But they
Yes,
even make a
that
point, like, Boro tells you when he's, like, introducing you to the process, because the whole thing is built into a tree in the center of the shop, he's like, "Don't worry if you waste tea. Look, the tea, goes to the
it's
tree,
watering
and
the
it's
tree.
watering the tree, and then it grows pretty flowers, the color of the
Mhm.
tea that you made." So it's like,
Yeah.
it's kind of all baked into this. Yeah, sorry, keep
Yeah.
going.
No, that became my new obsession was
Yeah.
figuring out how long to pull the rope to get the tea to the very top of the mug without it overflowing,
Uh-huh.
and it's like this
I don't
exact
think you
science.
can do it? You can
Yeah,
do it
you
without
can.
it?
Yeah. Yeah.
Interesting. Because I
Yeah.
got to the point where I would literally just press the button, and as soon as the tea started flowing, I'd let it go, and it would still overflow every time.
Yeah, no, I mean, I don't get it every time, but yeah, there's a
Interesting.
way. There's
I
there's a
didn't know there was a
way.
perfect way to do it. I just assumed it was like, no, it's just this is the animation for how it pours in. Hmm.
Yeah, yeah. So, there's a way for my perfectionism to come through and I'll find a way, so yeah, it's like getting but I think being able to inhabit the granularity of these tasks and to just focus on such a minute element of the task as a whole, like the whole point is to, like, serve the tea, but the fact that the game gives you the space to focus in on each step and enjoy each tiny step as part of this larger process. I don't know, I really appreciated that.
Mhm.
Um, it it was like a nice again, it's in service of this larger reminder of like there's no rush, there's no pressure to win everything, and also there's like beauty to be found in small moments.
Mhm.
And just kinda being present with process.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, and the reason, Alta ends up at the tea shop to begin with, is the tea shop called Wanderstop? You think
Yes.
that's okay.
Yes.
I never was 100%
There's like
clear
a
on that.
sign, there's
Oh,
a
okay.
sign and it says Wanderstop, it's very missable, but it's, like,
Okay.
near the mailbox.
I'm just unobservant. No, no, so the reason, Alta ends up here is that, when the game starts, she's running you get, like, a little bit of, like, some vignettes of her story so far. She was this fantastic fighter, dedicated her whole life so far to fighting, and she's not very old. I mean, she's probably, like,
Mhm.
in her 20s,
Yeah.
maybe mid to late 20s at the oldest. But she's dedicated her whole life to fighting. She was undefeated for so long. She was the top fighter. And then randomly and surprisingly, she lost. She lost a fight. And then she kept losing. And she couldn't win again. And she kept throwing herself back at it and she kept losing. And so now she's come to this magical woods in search of Master Winters, who is used to be a legendary fighter and she believes that Master Winners can train her and get her back to winning
Mm.
again. But as she's running through the woods, she just keeps getting so tired and having to stop and then forcing herself to keep going. And you can kind of already see within the first 5 minutes of the game, like, oh, this person is, I mean, she's deeply tired and will not
Mhm.
let herself stop running through the woods. I mean, girl, you can't even walk. Like
Yeah.
we can just walk through the woods. Um,
Right.
and then
Why are we
she
sprinting through the
I know,
trees?
it's like, why are we sprinting? Like, just take a walk. She can't even walk. Like, she can't let herself not be going 110%. And
Mhm.
she eventually collapses and passes out. And that's when she's found by Boro, who is just Boro's the fucking man. Love that guy.
Love that guy.
He's great. Might end up on my, like, favorite video game characters of the year list.
Yeah.
Like, I can see that happening for sure. He is just this large bowling ball of a man who is so pleasant. Boro has been to therapy.
Boro is therapy.
Boro is therapy. Like, I do think, I don't think it's spoilers to say this, but, like, as the game went on, I was like, this is all very much feels like a metaphor for someone being in, like, a therapy,
Mhm.
like, rehab center kind of thing is
Mm.
what it
Mhm.
feels like. The various characters that you meet and Boro as maybe, like, a very gentle and kind, like, best case scenario of being institutionalized, like, kind and helpful therapist,
Yeah.
guide, like, definitely feels like you could read this whole game that way. Um, but yeah, he's great and he saves Alta and he brings her to the clearing in the middle of the woods where his tea shop is. And he tries to convince her, like, hey, I found you passed out in the woods. Maybe you should take a break. And
Yeah.
she's resistant to that at first. She try how many times did you because the game lets you decide if you're gonna keep going back into the woods. How many times
Mhm.
did you try to go back in the
Yeah, I mean,
woods?
I was committed to the bit, so I went in, like, 4 or 5
Yeah,
times
yeah, same. I was like,
just to see.
I know what this game is and what this game's about, and I'm gonna be
Yeah.
forced to work at this tea shop, but I feel like Alta would keep beating her head against this
Mhm.
for several more times. And so, you keep trying to go back out and she keeps falling and eventually gets to the point where she can't pick up her sword anymore. She literally can't lift it. It's too heavy. But Boro can pick it up and he's like,
Mm.
"Nope, feels like a normal sword weight to me." And she just
Mhm.
can't wrap her head around what's going on. And Boro's like, Miss Alta, like maybe you just stay here with me. We could make some tea. You could relax because you seem like someone who's very tired. And
Mhm.
you can't pick up your sword anyway, so maybe it would be okay if you just stay here for a bit until you can pick up your sword again and see how that goes. And so after, a lot of beating her head against the wall and a lot of, like, resisting it, Alta finally agrees to stay because she doesn't really feel like she has any choice. She can't carry her sword. She can't even seem to get more than, a handful of yards outside of the clearing before passing out
Yeah.
again in the woods. So she finally decides to stay and at Wanderstop and try this new thing of, managing the tea shop with Boro. That's when he walks you through how everything works and kinda turns you loose to start helping customers. And yeah, the story just kind of follows from there. Um, the first time though, so the customers come out of the woods and they'll have a little exclamation mark over their head, so to talk to people and help the first couple of people, got them what they need, felt like their stories were kind of in the middle of things. Like one of the
Mhm.
first characters that you
Mm.
meet, is this guy, is it Gerald? Is his name, the knight?
Oh,
The
yes,
dad?
yes. Mhm.
He's a father who really wants his son to think that he's cool, is
Mhm.
really like his story, and so he's gone out and he's gotten this knight armor, and he's on a quest to do something cool so that he can go home and tell his son, like, how show his son how cool he is, and finally his son will think he's just the best. Um, and he gets cursed by a witch, and
Mhm.
he's got this purple, like, hazy goo growing up, his leg, and
Yeah.
Gerald's just like, "Oh, I'm not worried about that. That's no problem. I'm gonna keep going out in the woods and, like, keep trying to, like, do a big quest so that my son will think I'm cool." And he keeps coming back, and the curse keeps seeming to get worse, and then finally he comes back, and he's got the exclamation mark over his head, and Alta goes to talk to him, and you just get a bunch of ellipses.
Yeah.
and you keep trying to talk to him, and he has
First time
nothing
that
to
happened, I was
say.
like, "What?"
Yeah, and you go to the other character the
Demon
other
Hunter.
customer that's wandering around. Yeah, he's a young boy named Demon Hunter, and he doesn't have anything to say to you either. Nobody's being responsive. They just stand and blink at you blankly.
Mhm.
And you go to Boro. I kept waiting for Boro to also do it. Like,
Same.
I thought that was gonna happen.
Yeah.
And Boro's like, "Well," he's like, "Yeah, this happens sometimes. Maybe it's just time for us to move on." And he explains that we can go to the shrine at the center of the clearing next to the large willow tree, and he'll light the shrine, and you can meditate at the shrine, and then things will change. And I was like, "Oh, this must be how the game is, like, doing chapters, basically. This is how we're gonna
Mhm.
advance the story." So we go through it, Boro lights the shrine, I bring Alta over there, we meditate, and when we wake back up, Geralt's gone. Demon Hunter's gone. All of the decoration that you have done is gone.
Mhm.
All of the seeds you accrued, all of the T-balls you accrued,
Mhm.
all of the fun trinkets that you got, the plants that you planted, it's all
The
gone.
mugs you
The
found.
mugs you found, everything, all gone. The, like, world has kind of been moved around a little bit, like, things are in slightly different places.
Mhm.
You're not even holding the tools that you were holding, those have been hung back up on the walls inside the shop. You can go pick them up again. But, like, basically, entire slate is wiped clean, and you never see Gerald again. And that was when I was like, "Oh, fuck, this game's doing some shit."
Yeah.
That was, like, my wake-up moment of, like, "Oh, interesting."
Mhm.
And also, like, a huge not "fuck you," that's too strong, but, like, a huge indicator that this is not a typical cozy game
Yeah.
at all.
Yeah.
Taking away all like, I mean, think of Animal Crossing and how much that game is about meticulously decorating and controlling every element of that
Mhm.
space, which is therapeutic in its own way, right? Like, I mean, why did Animal Crossing blow the fuck up at the beginning of COVID? Nobody had any control of anything that was happening, but here was this tiny little world where I can pick my fucking neighbors and
Yes.
I can decorate their house. Like I have all the control in this one little box. And here's
Yeah.
Wanderstop, like, presenting itself in that fashion.
Right.
And yet, in order to actually advance the game, you have to let it go.
Absolutely.
I thought that was pretty powerful.
Yes. I actually thought the very first time that happened, I was like, "Wait, let me go back. Did I do something wrong?"
Yeah,
Like,
I
I
mean, I was
thought I
Googling. I was like,
had
could I have helped Gerald? Like, what did I
Yeah.
do? What did I fuck up? I
Yeah.
didn't fix his curse. And there's nothing you can do for him. It's the game very clearly telling you, like, or I guess, like, reflecting this real world thing of, like, people will come in and out of your life, and you won't be able to fix everything for them,
Mhm.
and you might not know where their story goes from there, or you might maybe one day you'll reconnect, but you have no idea.
Yeah.
Life is transient and full of change, and people move in
Mhm.
and out of it, and you don't necessarily get to be there for the whole arc of their story,
Mhm.
nor can you necessarily fix everything.
Absolutely.
So 100%, yeah, an exercise in just letting go.
And letting go, yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
And sort of that, like, I feel like I panicked at first, like, when all the plants were gone, all my trinkets were gone, um, all my tea mugs were gone. I forgot to mention my other favorite activity is, like, I'm obsessed with as you cut weeds, you can find dirty mugs. My
Mhm.
absolute favorite thing is putting shit in the dishwasher. It's like
Oh, yeah,
this
that dishwasher's great.
train that goes, like, up through a
Mhm.
waterfall and down and then through, like, a heated furnace, and it
Yeah,
washes the
it's like
dishes.
these little bowls all strapped together as as little train
The little
cars, and you
train, it's so cute.
set the dirty mugs inside the little bowl, and then it goes through the
Yeah.
water fountain and washes itself.
I'm just obsessed, like, when you find a dirty mug, it'll be all stained and have, like, stink
Yeah.
lines and
Yeah.
flies coming out of it, and then you put it through the dishwasher, and it's like I just love finding things and cleaning them. I like, oh my
Mhm.
god, it's, like, the best thing ever. But, my mug collection, I was like, "No!" It made me realize too, like even in this digital context, I have such an attachment to these physical objects and
Mhm.
material things, and
Mhm.
being forced to release, literally, like Buddhism says, like, releasing yourself from these earthly attachments, like,
Mhm.
what is left behind.
But what's the
Um,
one thing that stays?
the one thing that stays are the pictures, the memories.
Specifically the ones you put on the wall. Anything you have in your inventory gets wiped. Excuse me. But any pictures you put on the wall, and I read that as, like, the thing that we get to keep is our memories
Yeah.
of the things that we've been through and experienced. But the rest of
Mhm.
it, you can't necessarily hang on to.
Can't take it with you.
Mhm. Mhm.
So, yeah, I have to say it took a while. I was like, "Boro, are you, like am I in hell? Am I in
Am
purgatory?"
I in hell?
Like
Boro is Satan.
Yeah. I was kinda like, I don't know. I guess I'm still a little bit like, "What do you know?"
I believe those Dirk Warhard novels were something from hell. Did you read one of those?
Yeah.
There's
Oh
these,
my
like,
god.
in-game, like, I don't know, I think they're, like it's kind of like aping, like, Tom Clancy and shit like that, but
Mm.
it's this novel about this, James Bond-ish, like, I don't know, he doesn't necessarily work for the government or whatever, he is just a dude named Dirk Warhard who, can fire bullets harder and faster than any other man, and just like yeah, it's very he's toxic masculinity, the character, but it's all
Yeah.
very tongue in cheek. And these are like full stories written out that you can page through. It's like 10
Yeah.
pages of writing.
Yeah.
But did you read the at one point you can get your hands on a book that's like written as though a literary
Oh, yeah.
critic is, like, writing about the impact of Dirk Warhard novels
Mhm.
and, like, where they came from and what they say about the culture. I thought that was really
Yeah, it was
interesting.
funny. And it
Yeah.
was even unpacking, like, the toxic masculinity
Uh-huh.
within Dick Warhard? Is that what
Dirk
Dirk
Warhard.
Warhard.
Yeah. So stupid.
So funny. I have to
Uh,
say, one thing I really appreciated about this game was the sort of, I guess you could just call it diversity of people and body types,
mhm.
and expressions.
Yeah.
It's not like anyone is ever like, "Hi, my pronouns are, and here is my, like, identity." Like, it's just people
Mhm.
talking to you. But I really liked there's this one character, Ren, that you meet, and he's, like, this super buff, muscular, like, warrior guy. He's wearing,
Mhm.
like, a mask for a bone skull mask
Mhm.
for a lot of the initial time that you're talking to him, and I, like, zoomed in, and I saw that he had top surgery scars,
Oh, shit. I didn't notice that.
and I
That's
was
very
like,
cool.
"Oh my god!" I don't think I've ever seen that in a game,
Mm.
and it doesn't have anything to do with his character or why you're helping him,
Mhm.
but just that kind of, like, quiet acknowledgement I really liked,
Yeah, that's cool.
and I also appreciated I mean, like I just think a lot of times in popular media, and especially in kind of more cartoonish settings, um, people along the trans masculine spectrum are kind of often depicted as this kind of like very cutesy, defanged,
Mhm.
like small bean, like uwu kind of
Yeah.
vibe.
Yeah.
Either like just very um yeah, just very I don't know what the word is. Just kind of, I don't know how to articulate it. Just very
Diminutive
specific yeah,
and
diminutive and
quiet. I
yeah,
don't know,
like
like, still not
bookish
taking up a lot of space.
right. Or maybe distancing them as much as possible from big, scary, evil masculinity because,
Mhm.
um, to be masculine is to basically be the same thing as, like, violence or something.
Mhm.
There's definitely a lot to unpack within masculinity, and I
Mhm.
think that, you know trans men very often, without acknowledging or investigating it, can replicate and um, still wield the damage of toxic masculinity. I'm not at all
Mhm.
saying that trans men are immune from that.
Mhm.
Um, that's a whole other episode. At the same time, it can be a little silly sometimes to see that these depictions almost continue with the narrative that trans men aren't maybe legitimate as men.
Mhm.
And I also need to disclaim that by no means is there one way to be a man, and
Sure,
that
yeah.
people who identify as tender queer or in the small bean community, like, there's nothing wrong with
Yeah,
that.
we're not dragging any small beans here. It's just
Yeah.
nice. You just wanna see a
Just wanna
diversity
see a
of
diversity.
visual
Exactly.
representation
Exactly.
of trans masculinity, and it was cool to see one that fits a bit outside the norm
Yeah, like, I was
of
like,
what we see.
"Oh, like, here's this, like, yeah, just really, like, badass looking, muscular looking,
Yeah, and, like, I
like."
mean, Ren in particular is very much designed like a, comic book style
Yes.
masculine hero, fighter character, super broad
Yes.
chest, huge pecs, totally sculpted
Mhm.
abs and body. He's that super, top heavy, wide and top heavy kinda character where he comes down to,
Yeah.
much smaller, narrower legs. Um and so to see that type what is so often presented as yeah, the epitome of cartoon comic-esque masculinity, also be
Exactly.
a trans guy is yeah, it's just neat to
It's a
see.
fun twist.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Fun
So,
twist.
I don't know, it was cool. I liked it.
Yeah.
And I'm not saying that that's, like, the only sorry, I don't know. It's like we
Yeah,
have so few examples
representations.
to
Yeah.
point to that I think it's a slippery slope kind of getting into, and it should be like this. Like,
Mhm.
that's not at all what I'm trying to say. It was
No, you
just
just liked this. That's
yeah, it was cool.
yeah.
And I liked that
Saying
sort
you
of
like one thing doesn't mean you hate
I
another
hate
thing.
everything else. Listen, we live
That's the
in the age of the
Twitterification of
internet. Yeah.
conversation. I know, and we're gonna resist that here on Pixel Therapy. You're
Ah,
just saying you like pancakes, that doesn't mean you hate waffles.
exactly. And I have to say, my boy Ren was problematic as fuck.
Oh,
I
yeah,
mean,
super problematic.
he was really, trying to push on my, like,
On Alta's
he was
piece,
kinda like my mom, like, "Oh, you're not gonna keep like, you." He knows you. He comes into the tea shop and he's like, "Oh my god, you're Alta. You're
Mhm,
the best warrior in the world. Like, I've looked up to you. I've trained
yeah,
to be like you. What do you mean you've stopped fighting? Like, what, are you weak? You must have just, there must be like, you gotta push yourself harder. You've gotta do all of these things that your body is telling you not to do, and if you can't do that, then it must be a personal failing, and I'm disappointed in you, and you're not the person I wanted you to be.
yeah,
And therefore, you suck and I hate you. Goodbye."
yeah,
No, there's other stuff that happens, and there's a bit of a kind of like, reckoning with
mhm.
that, but, so my problematic king, Red, love love him for that.
Yeah.
More more trans wrongs in gaming.
Yeah, the game, does a really good job of bringing characters through, the world that Alta interacts with that they all ultimately teach her and players something. They have something to say that speaks to the core themes of the game, which, there's the theme that they articulate in the description of change, accepting change. That's a huge part of the narrative. A lot of the characters that several of the characters that Ulta meets are experiencing some form of change, and the game is asking you to reflect on how that person is processing that change or dealing with it. And Alta herself is trying to accept that, right? What does it mean for her as someone who has dedicated her whole life to fighting to not be able to pick up her sword, to not be able to pursue this? I think though the game can also, and not that this is an alternative reading, but I think it's also very much a representation of burnout.
Mhm,
um, I think Alta is showing, classic signs of burnout and not being able to engage in something that you have pushed yourself to love for years
mm.
and years. Um, Alta also, when she goes into the woods, sees, like, a split side of herself,
Mm,
that is pushing her to keep going. This kind of, like, glowing yellow version of herself that she initially interprets as, like, another entity it's attached itself to her, and then slowly, like, over the course of the game, accepts it, "Oh, no, that's actually, like, me. I'm doing this to me."
mm,
And I think the game, like, asks us to think about, like, how that we all have that side of ourself that can drive us forward, to drive us to do things when we maybe don't want to, or can push us towards things, and that driving force can be really great. That can help you achieve some of the best stuff you'll achieve in your life, and also, if that's not balanced with, uh, setting healthy boundaries for yourself and taking time to rest and relax, and just letting that driving force go into overdrive and constantly be driving you and
mm,
never pushing back against it, you can do a lot of harm to yourself too.
yeah.
Um, I think that, yeah, the game explores all of that really, really fucking well. There's a great quote from Boro near the end of the game where he says, "Boredom can be a wonderful luxury." And the game is just like, I don't know, I felt like it was very much reminding us that it's important to take that time where you're not moving towards anything, and something I found
Mm,
myself
mm,
reflecting on a lot too, especially with some of the tensions I felt early on in the game with, everything getting wiped when stuff changes, not being able to resolve the stories of certain characters, not
mm,
being able to, like, min and max my efficiency with things, even down to the trophies in this game. I was like, "Oh, this seems like a fairly quick, cozy little game. I usually like getting the platinums in games like these. Let me look up the trophy list," and a trophy guide. I look up the guide, and it's just like, you'll get all the trophies naturally as part of the game, and they're
yeah,
not they're
that
not even
mhm,
triggered by any activity.
mhm,
They literally just pop as the game goes on,
mhm.
apropos of nothing.
I was gonna
Because it
ask you about that because I know you're a
Yeah,
trophy hunter, and
yeah.
I was thrown off. I was like, "Wait,
It's
what?"
because even down to the trophies, they're saying, like, "No, no, like, we don't want you using this to, like, do any of that shit that I think we do sometimes with
Mhm,
games," which is, like, working out all the stuff that we maybe don't get out of our daily life, like the achievement hunting and
yeah,
when I'm playing a game, am I even playing it to appreciate the game, or am I playing it to check some box and get some dopamine hit because I can't let myself relax? Like, I think it's an interesting
mhm,
question that to, like, be asking and reflecting on, like, what am I getting out of this? Um, and yeah, saying, like, it's okay to be bored. I can get that way with my free time. It's like, well, fuck, I can't just sit here and do nothing. Like, I wanna be accomplishing something, or that can make it hard for me sometimes to keep going with the game because it's like, "Well, what am I doing? I'm not accomplishing anything in the game," or I'm not
yeah,
and it's just like, no, sometimes you should just be doing a thing to do a thing, and it doesn't have
yeah,
to be checking anything off a list, but that's something I struggle personally with a lot. Like, I'm
yeah,
very list oriented and objective oriented, and it can be hard to just do a thing because it's a thing to do and not because it's achieving something. And the game really, I don't know, really was making me think about that.
mhm,
It made it challenging for me sometimes to keep going with it, um, or and to engage with stuff like, you know, planting plants in pots and decorating the shop because I was like, well, what's the point of this? But
right,
maybe it doesn't need a
right,
point. The
yeah,
action, just the activity of it can be the point.
mhm, yeah. Something that stood out to me was, so you can also make tea for yourself and drink it,
Mhm. Yes.
and it's like there are these cozy reflection spots throughout the game where you can take
Mhm.
your cup of tea and sit down and drink it. And as we mentioned, it's like different fruits elicit different responses when you or a customer drinks the tea. So like and they're all kind of surreal and wacky. Like one fruit will be like when you drink this, it compels you to use the word triangle in a sentence. Or if you drink this one, you'll reflect on the last time you felt innocent. Or you drink this one and it'll remind you of your favorite flavor of ice cream.
Mhm.
So then Alta sits down and drinks it and has it's one of the rare moments in the game that's fully voice acted, but it will kind of zoom out from where you're sitting and it will be a moment where the character is speaking of a memory or something that the tea brings up.
Mhm.
And every one of Alta's recollections are like the most disturbing. Like, okay, the first one I drank was this fruit was like, when you drink this, it reminds you of a memory of your best friend. And then the scene starts and Alta's like, "I don't know that I've ever had a best friend. Maybe my best friend is this boy who would come into my father's shop when he was working, and he would constantly tease me. One day he told me that my father was a loser, and before I could react, I'd punched him in the face, and when he went down, I kept punching him, and I couldn't stop until someone pulled me away. Yeah, I think that was my best friend." I was like, "What the hell is this game?" I was like, maybe that was just next one is like, um, my father owned a store growing up, and, I think this was the ice cream it was like the ice cream memory. It was like, my memories of my mother are not good, but one thing I remember is that she would occasionally bring home ice cream, and we would eat it together on the back porch. I
Mhm.
remember one time we were eating ice cream, and she mentioned that my father had lost his job. All I could think about was how weak he was, and, like, I blamed him for years for making our life terrible. Um, there was a quote I actually wrote down because, the memory goes on to say, like, "Later in life, I found out that him losing his job wasn't even his fault, but no matter what I did, I couldn't forgive him." The quote I wrote down was, "The anger had dug trenches in my chest. There was no amount of rational explanation that would get it to budge. Even now, I don't understand why."
Mm.
So each of these memories that Alta has as she's drinking tea are, like, super, um,
Yeah.
complicated and, distressing.
Mhm.
But a lot of the themes it touches on, I think, are I don't know, I think anyone who's gone through, emotional trauma can relate to this feeling of I think it's at least for me in this scenario, I have my own childhood trauma that reminded me of where like, so much time has gone by and you get so used to feeling that anger, um, and I know in her case, she was saying it was irrational, it wasn't even her father's fault, but she still couldn't let go of the blame. I think a lot of that, if you were to unpack it in a therapy setting, it kinda has to do with, um, your own like, what you were going through at the time to cause that emotion and that part of yourself needing attention, needing I guess back to the theme of the game, which is like you can't outrun pain and you can't not look at it or ignore it. Eventually you have to address it, just like any other trauma. It's just one more way that like it's not gonna just resolve itself without attention. You have to tend to it and you have to sit with it and you have to look at it. But this simple line of like, even after all this time, this familiar pattern, like the anger digging trenches in her chest and kind of just being a part of who she is now, resonated. And so, I don't know, I guess it's just one more example of kind of how the game has this very like cute and lighthearted cover on the surface. And then underneath, it's really digging up some real truths about how we hold pain in our bodies and what happens to us when we don't deal with it.
Yeah, absolutely. And those scenes, where you're doing the tea drinking was just another thing that drove home that metaphor for me of her going through a therapeutic process or being in therapy, and so, like, those felt like talk therapy sessions to an
Yeah.
extent, like, her, revisiting these memories, with a new through a new lens and, maybe seeing something new in them. You can bring Boro tea as well,
Mhm.
which I always enjoyed doing, um,
Yeah.
and he would have a reflection, but his were far, far less traumatic sounding,
Yeah.
way more chill. Any final thoughts on, uh on Wanderstop? I'm assuming you're gonna finish it, right?
Yeah, how they're gonna finish it. right after this.
Right
I
after
think I'm
this,
in
yeah.
the end game.
Okay.
I just really liked I the customers, like, the
Mhm.
inventiveness in their designs and who they were.
Mhm.
I mean, it's not even, like, tied to like, I think the ones we mentioned were all, like, people. There's also, like, this, like, Batgirl that shows up, she's really cute,
Mhm.
and this, like, ethereal being.
Yeah.
Um, there's, like, a dude riding around on a cloud. Like, I'm just like, "Where
Yep.
the" it's very much like a dream.
Yeah. Yeah.
I just love the world building,
Mhm.
and yeah, it's so not what I expected,
Mhm.
which I love about it. Like,
Yeah.
I'm very happy after
Yeah, I
playing
mean,
this.
I was expecting it to not be just a straightforward cozy game, knowing it was coming from the writer and creator of the Stanley Parable,
Yeah.
which is a bit of a mindfuck game, um, for anyone that's familiar with Stanley Parable. But uh, yeah, it ended up being a lot more and definitely had me reflecting on my own relation. I wasn't expecting to reflect so much on my relationship to gaming and
Mm,
games and
mhm.
cozy gaming in particular. Um, as I was like, I was expecting a story that, you know, eh, was like I think from the early trailers, it kind of was like, oh, this might be a game about burnout and like dealing with burnout. Um, but I wasn't expecting to like, have so much to reflect on personally. I thought it was more gonna be, "Oh, I'll experience a cool story." And
Yeah.
yet even with the whole design and mechanics set of the game, it was kind of putting players through some reflective practices and challenging, players in interesting ways too. So,
Yeah.
very cool game, very
Yeah.
interesting, a lot to say, a lot of meaningful stuff to think about.
Speaking of
Definitely.
things to say, you've gotta share this quote you wrote down from Nana, who was, up there on my top 5 characters.
Are we referring to the useful one?
Yeah.
Yeah, so Nana is, one of the customers that rolls well, she's not technically a customer. She makes a point of being like, "No, I'm not a customer." She is a traveling entrepreneur, who sets up, her little business across from Wanderstop and is threatening to put them out of business, or threatening to put Boro out of business. Um, she's very like, "Oh, I'm just a straight shooting, like, like straight talking old woman, and I'm gonna tell you like it is, and I'm not gonna pull any punches, and capitalism's gonna save us," kind of a
Yeah.
deal. And like, you better be prepared to pay up. But she only accepts nanobucks for her store, which is like not a real thing. And so mostly you end up like bartering with her for different things, or she just gives you stuff. Like she ends up
Right.
like her actions don't align with her words. She actually like
Yeah.
does a lot to help Alta, but she's definitely a source of comic relief in the game. And yeah, she had this one funny quote that I wrote down that I thought I might have an opportunity to share here today. But at one point, Alta talks about is like saying something about just wanting to be useful, and Nana says, "Don't be useful. Dumpsters are useful, and nobody wants to be around a dumpster." And I don't know that it's a funny quote, but I also was kind of like thinking about it as like I don't know. I am someone who's constantly like thinking about like, well, yeah, how can I be useful in this situation? Like especially in the context
Mhm.
of like work. Like I
Yeah.
want to be doing something, I want to be producing something, I want to be helping, or like yeah, I want to be useful to other people, and that will help me like have value to other people if I'm useful to them.
Yeah.
And so that quote just made me pause for a second because I think, you know, there's certainly a lot of ways in which being useful can be a positive. But to Nana's point, it's also not always a positive. Being useful just makes you a tool. And,
Mhm.
you know, sometimes in some contexts, that's a good thing to be, but that can't be what your whole value is as a human. Like, your number
Totally.
one priority can't just be to be useful to other people.
Mm.
So, yeah, wrote that down.
Word. I
Thanks
love
for
Nana.
shouting it out. Yeah, Nana was great. I don't know, I wonder, like, I don't know, did you have any takes on, like, what we're supposed to learn from Nana?
So,
I mean, she has
I
these, like, gems of wisdom that she drops
Mhm.
periodically, but because she also one of the final things she leaves Alta with is, like, the idea of, like, there's no bad people, only bad choices,
Mhm.
which I thought was, like, a pretty powerful quote from her too, but, yeah, I don't, just, like, her representation as a character is this, like, grumpy older woman.
Mhm.
Yeah, I wasn't quite sure she didn't have the same arc. She didn't have an arc like a lot of the characters did. I mean, she
Yeah.
was positioned more as someone like Boro, who's, like, more of a staple of the forest rather than, like, a transient person kinda moving in and
Mhm.
out, and so she wasn't on a journey to learn anything. She's set and
Yeah.
established in her way. So I don't know, I haven't, like, figured out what my read on her yet is, like, a representation of in the metaphor or whatever. Did you have a read?
Yeah. So something about Nana was like I noticed that she and Alta had some visual similarities, and even down to, they had a very similar looking sleeve of tattoos on the same arm, among some other, like, feature similarities. And so I almost saw her and part of what I enjoyed about the dialogue with Nana is that you could choose to kind of, um like, rise to her level and kind of sort of exchange barbs in, like, a way that the game plays off as, like, it's not like, you're not actually being mean to each other, like, there's something else going on beneath the surface. And so I almost feel like I saw Nana as, like, a glimpse of Alta's future in terms of, like, a version of her that isn't bound by all of these expectations and anxieties that she's putting on herself. Like she's free of other people's judgment and living on her terms and unafraid of how other people's perceptions of her or what success has to look like. And so like I don't think Alta's literally going to become a traveling saleswoman, but I felt like what I saw from her was like what could happen on the other side 50 years from now, if she does the work to heal herself, like, she could be as free as Nana, and maybe she could see parts of herself in Nana that she relates to. That was my take.
Yeah, I like that take. I like that take. I think that's a good take.
Thanks.
On
I
that
worked hard on
note
it.
yeah, you did great. You did great. On that note, time is up for today's session of Pixel Therapy. Thank you all for tuning in, and we hope that listening to our thoughts and feelings gave you some thoughts and feelings of your own. If you want more Pixel Therapy, you can come check us out at patreon.com/pixeltherapypod, where you can sign up for free to stay up to date on everything we have going on, including our weekly streaming schedule. Or you can subscribe for as little as $2 a month and snag that sweet monthly bonus episode. Also, be sure to check out our Let's Play series, Pixel Therapy Plays, on the Pixel Therapy Pod YouTube channel. You can subscribe and ring the bell to get notifications every time we go live over there. And of course, you can also support the show by rating and reviewing us on Apple Podcasts and following us on Twitter at Pixel Therapy Pod. That stuff is just as important, and we appreciate it just as much.
Finally, students like to put our money and our energy where our mouth is. We end every episode with a recommended side quest. So this week I want to draw everyone's attention to a chuffed.org fundraiser that will link in the episode notes and description on YouTube. But Mahmoud Khalil, he is a Columbia University grad student and a Palestinian activist who, in the past couple of weeks, you may have seen on the news, despite being a lawful green card holder and resident of the United States, he was abducted from his home by ICE without being shown a warrant or any charges against him. And then he was rapidly transported to a detention center in Louisiana and is facing deportation. He has a wife and an unborn child who is due any week now. And so this chuffed.org fund, Justice for Mahmoud Khalil, is raising money to support his legal fees and support his family during this time. He is someone who has spent his life dedicated to advocating for justice. And it sets a scary precedent that any one of us who are not disagreeing with actions happening in our country and are simply vocalizing our freedom of speech can be disappeared in this way. And so, if you want to learn more about his case and donate or share, again, you can visit that chuffed.org fund, we'll drop a link for y'all.
Yeah, really scary stuff going on. So it feels a little silly to wrap up right now like that after that.
Sorry,
But
at least we have each other.
yeah, at least we have each other. Thanks for that side quest, Spencer. That is
Yeah.
our show for today. So go forth, run a story mission, level up some stats, and don't forget to hug an NPC every now and then. We'll be back soon with some more
Pixel
Pixel
therapy.
therapy. Bye-bye.
Bye.